I don't get to wear it much.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What do you think? We're ready? Mac, you good? Okay. So first of all, if you could all make sure that you're muted, that would be great. And thank you very, very much for being here. I'm Jonathan Salk, and I want to welcome you to the first annual virtual Planting Seeds event. We had 70 people that actually registered, and I can see people still filtering in. And I just want to say, first off, we couldn't do it without your support and being here. I've been lucky enough to be part of the Planting Seeds local planning group for the last 4 years. And for those of you who have been involved in Planting Seeds at all, it's just such an outstanding cause. So we appreciate you taking an hour of your time tonight. We know there's a Bears game for you sports fans out there. But we're going to do a few things over the next hour. We're going to learn a little bit about planting seeds. We're going to listen to a great speaker, Rick Weisbord, out of Harvard and Evanston Township High School grad. We're going to bid on some auction items. The items are going to be available until tomorrow. And Mary will be putting stuff in the chat box periodically with the link to the auction items. And hopefully we raise a little money. And I know a lot of you have been contributors to Planting Seeds already. And as you know, any amount goes a long, long way. So thank you very much. So Mac, unless I missed anything, do we want to start the video?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
¿A dónde quiere ir? ¿Allá quiere ir usted? ¿Para ir allá? Lo que más me gusta de Plantando Semillas es su forma de enseñanza, los métodos que utilizan para enseñar, los juegos, las capacitaciones, en sí, toda su enseñanza. Aquí los niños aprenden solos. A ellos lo único que se les da es la base y de ahí ellos van creando, van formando, ellos van descubriendo su propio aprendizaje.
Mi nombre es Mérida, actualmente trabajo en Plantando Semillas, aquí en Sacar las Lomas, en el Jardín de los Angelitos de San Martín Jilotepeque, Chimaltenango, Guatemala. Estudié mis primeros 2 años aquí en Plantando Semillas, en el Jardín de los Angelitos especialmente. Ahora laboro aquí. Lo que más me gusta de Plantando Semillas como alumno, como un estudiante, es su forma de aprender. Bastante juegos, más que todo mi experiencia ha sido que aprendí más a través de juegos. Y como maestra, una de mis igual es su forma de enseñar. Plantando Semilla tiene metodologías bastante acomodadas a niños. Eso es lo que a mí más me gusta de Plantando Semillas, de cómo ellos enseñan a los niños, de cómo es que a través del juego los niños van aprendiendo mejor y asimismo ellos más que todo aprenden, porque tanto como maestras no intervenimos, pero sí ellos mismos van construyendo su aprendizaje.
Esta organización existe en Guatemala desde el año 2001, gracias a 2 educadores canadienses. Nació en ellos el deseo de implementar en Guatemala un sistema educativo innovador, en el cual los niños se sienten felices de estar en la escuela, y realmente es un programa que ha causado mucho impacto en diferentes vidas, tanto de niños como de docentes y padres de familia.
Yo leí un rótulo de ustedes ahí y dice: dime y lo olvido, enséñame y lo recuerdo. y dice, involúcrame y lo aprendo. Y yo creo que es lo que él, en mi trabajo es técnico, y cuando agarro la herramienta y estoy ahí, él va y agarra la herramienta y lo hace. Creo que si le enseñara algo malo, también él lo haría. Entonces, lo que veo acá, lo que he escuchado y lo que termino de ver es que la metodología de ustedes es diferente. Es algo, tal vez no nuevo, pero en nuestro lugar sí, ¿verdad? Y creo que funciona.
Excellent. Thank you. So what I'm going to do now is I'd like to introduce Sharon Workman, who is a board member of Planting Seeds. And from what I hear, it also happens to be Sharon's birthday today. Is that true, Sharon? Okay, so happy birthday from all of us. So Sharon, I will turn it over to you. I see that Rick has logged on, and looks like we might be ready to go. And Sharon, you got to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Of course.
Thanks to everyone, actually. I'm really excited to be here. This is my first virtual gala, so I'm curious about how they're done. And before I introduce Jonathan, I just want to say thank you to all of you for organizing this. It's such a creative thing to do during this pandemic, to continue raising funds. I know that you've done a lot in the past, and we have being a board member of Planting Seeds, I'm also on the development committee. Very grateful, as I know all the board members are, for the work that you've done to raise money to support Planting Seeds. You're really a model for others of us in the U.S. So, and you're sort of following also the footsteps of those friend circles in Ottawa and Pembroke, Canada. So I'm hoping it just keeps moving and we can follow your footsteps here in the U.S. So I have the honor tonight of introducing our guest, our speaker, Richard Weisbord. He's a psychologist and a senior lecturer at the Harvard's Graduate School of Education and at the Kennedy School of Government. He's also the co-director of the Human Development and Psychology Master's Program at Harvard. His list of accomplishments is very long, and I don't have a lot of time. We want to hear from him, so I'll just give you a few highlights. First one I learned tonight, one of his accomplishments is he graduated from Evanston High School. I didn't know that until I just heard Jonathan say it. But he also now is directing the Making Caring Common project, which is a national effort to make moral and social development priorities in child raising and to provide strategies to schools and parents for promoting children's caring, commitment to justice, and other key emotional, moral, and social capacities. Dr. Weisbord is also the founder of the Lee Academy, which is a pilot school in Boston that offers a continuous program for children that starts at age 3 and continues through elementary school. He advises city, state, and federal levels of government on family policy and school reform, and he's written for numerous scholarly and popular publications, including the New York Times, CNN, NPR, and Psychology Today, to name a few. He's the author of two nationally recognized books, The Vulnerable Child, What Really Hurts America's Children and What We Can Do About It, which is named as one of the top 10 education books of all time by the American School Board Journal. And he's written The Parents We Mean to Be, How Well-Intentioned Adults Undermine Children's Moral and Emotional Development. This was named by the New Yorker as one of the top 24 books of 2009. And that's just a few of his accomplishments. We're indeed fortunate to have Rick Weisbord with us this evening to share some of his knowledge and ideas about social emotional development and the importance of engaging families in fostering children's caring capacities. Welcome, Rick.
Karen, it's nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you. I was
Weren't we
hoping.
on a committee many years ago?
Right, yeah.
Great to see you. And thank you and happy birthday. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Happy birthday. It's great to see you all. It's great to see some fellow Chicagoans. I miss Chicago terribly. I also want to thank Mac, who's really, I'm not just saying this, was really one of my favorite students and just a very thoughtful and wonderful human being. So thank you for, nice to be reconnected with you, Mac, and it's good to be here. I think my plan was just to talk briefly, just to talk for five minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes, and then to have a conversation, I think, with Mac and with Sharon, if that's right. But so I will look forward to that. There are a few things that I was thinking about I'm planning to talk about. One is social emotional learning, as Sharon said. The other is literacy development. And the third is the ways in which parents and adults' social emotional learning is connected to children's social emotional learning and children's development. But as a way of getting the conversation started. And I'm eager to hear more about planting seeds, which from what I'm able to gather, demonstrates a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about, a lot of the practices that I'm going to be talking about. So first literacy. So I became obsessed with literacy maybe 20 years ago. Sharon may remember this. I founded something called Read Boston, which is the mayor's literacy initiative. And the reason that literacy is so important, why I'm so delighted to hear that Planting Seeds focuses on literacy, is that, I mean, third grade reading especially is this critical juncture. It's, if you can read by third grade, your chances of reading of success in school are far higher than if you're not able to read by third grade. And part of the reason for that is before third grade, you're learning to read, and after third grade, you're reading to learn. So your ability to do other kinds of material, math or science or history or whatever, depends on your ability to read. The pathways to reading are very different, and they vary by culture, and they vary by class, and they vary by a lot of things. And some of you may know a lot about this, but the reading process really begins at birth. It begins with vocabulary development. It begins with learning words, but being engaged in rich conversation. And it also, you know, for many families who can't spend a lot of time reading to their kids, it begins with stories too, rich stories that have meaning for kids, that attach parents to kids and help kids develop vocabulary. Vocabulary is a very strong predictor of reading success, having a rich vocabulary, and stories and reading, and not soldiering through reading, but using reading as a springboard for conversation is one powerful way in which kids develop vocabulary. Let me just say a few things about social emotional learning. And again, I will look forward to our conversation. This is a huge terrain, and it's a terrain that I feel annoyed by most of the time. I think social emotional learning, non-cognitive skills are describing so many different things. They're describing just about everything it means to be human in a way that becomes very muddy and unclear. I do think that there are certain social emotional skills that are very important to develop in kids, and I have been appreciated when the little I've learned about planting seeds, that these are things that Planting Seeds is thinking about a lot. One of them is self-awareness. The other is collaborative skills, the ability to work in groups, perspective taking, empathy, self-regulation. All of these things are not only important for academic achievement, they're important for good relationships, which are such a durable source of well-being. And many of them are important for being a good person in the world. They're important for acting ethically. And one of the things that I was really moved by when I was looking on the website from the testimonials from some of the parents is they talk so much about caring and respect. I mean, one of the things that you see in the US is this hyper focus on achievement and well-being. It comes up in our data that achievement and well-being have been elevated in child raising to a degree in this country that may be unprecedented in our history. Caring for others has been demoted or marginalized. And you see in those testimonials this putting front and center caring and respect. And I want to just say a few things about empathy in particular, because I think it's so important. I think people confuse empathy with perspective taking. But con men and torturers and politicians and salespeople can be very good at taking perspectives. What they don't do is value other people. Torturers can be very good at experiencing other feelings, experiencing other people's feelings, but they don't value other people. And empathy has a cognitive component, it's taking other perspectives, an affective component, it's experiencing other feelings, people's feelings, but also has this ethical component. It comes with value. It's also about valuing other people and valuing people who are different from you. And one of the things that I really appreciated again in looking at the website, the Planting Seeds website, is this focus on listening deeply and knowing that this is a place where children are really listened to and what they have to say is valued. And the self doesn't grow strong by being praised. That's a myth we have in our society. It grows strong by being known and by being valued. And it is that form of deep listening that I think helps the self mature and develop. It's also a powerful form of modeling for kids. It's also a way of modeling for them how they can develop caring relationships, and particularly for kids who are dealing with hardships of many kinds. Caring relationships are enormously protective. Caring relationships with friends, caring relationships with community members, caring relationships with family members. And Planting Seeds is putting caring relationships front and center. I think the other thing to really pay attention to when we're talking about empathy is, for a lot of people, the issue isn't how much empathy you have. It's not, the issue isn't the quantity. It's that something's getting in the way. I mean, when you think about times when you're not empathic, it's usually because of anger or frustration or shame or a stereotype or a bias. I hope this is okay. I was just talking to my class about this. I'm expressing partisan leanings, but I'm having trouble empathizing with our president. I'm having trouble empathizing with our president's supporters right now. And I want to differentiate the president from his supporters, because some of those supporters are going through considerable hardship, and it's appropriate to have empathy with them. I think when we're thinking about empathy, my point is that we have to talk about how to liberate empathy, in a sense, from all the things that can get in the way, the stereotypes, the frustrations, the angers, the biases that can get in the way. The final thing I just want to say about empathy, and it may be, and I don't know the context enough that you are in Guatemala, but I think empathy, we also confuse, something we also confuse about empathy is it's not just about the amount, it's not just about how much you have. Almost everybody has empathy, and empathy for somebody, and almost everybody, a lot of people have a lot of empathy for one or two people that they really love. In many ways, the issue is, how do we expand children's circle of concern? How do we expand their circles of care, their circles of responsibility, their circles of obligation? How do we help them care for people who may be irritating to them or foreign to them in some way, or have characteristics that, that they find alienating? That's the deep empathy work. It's for caring for, knowing, appreciating people who aren't in your immediate circle. How do we help them appreciate, and again, I don't know the Guatemala context, but in our context right now, how do we help them appreciate essential workers, custodians in schools right now who are putting their lives at risk, receptionists at hospitals that are putting their lives at risk, sanitation workers who are at risk of infection? How do we expand our children's circle of concern? And when you can appreciate people that are different from you and take multiple perspectives, that's the basis of justice and understanding what justice is. So that's one among many reasons why it's so important. Let me just say a few brief words about adult development and its relationship to child development and how interwoven they are, both in terms of literacy and in social emotional learning. I think that we have this sort of idea that as adults, particularly with our social emotional ethical capacities, that somehow we pass into adulthood and our capacities get locked in. But, you know, all of our capacities to listen, to empathize, to understand justice, for all of us, these are ongoing projects, right? We can always learn to empathize more deeply. We can always learn to take the perspectives of people we disagree with more effectively. And in our work with kids, it's very important, I think, that we ourselves are engaged in that project. And I also just want to say that I think there's some very important, you know, we talk about this, but there's some concrete things that adults can do in classrooms that are very important to do that will help them with caring and empathy and respect. One of them is asking the question, does every child in my class respect me? Just going through every child in the room. And if they don't, why don't they? And what might I do to repair the relationship? What might I do to be a person that every child in this classroom respects? Can I identify 3 strengths in every child in this classroom? And do I have a plan for working with those strengths? That, you know, I think that if we want to have strong relationships with kids, particularly those kids that tick us off or irritate us or frustrate us, we have to do the work of finding their strengths and developing relationships based on those strengths. I also think that we have to ask ourselves, what is getting in the way when we're having a hard time listening, really listening and knowing the child? What's getting in the way? And often those things may be opaque to us. That we have to ask our friends, our colleagues, people we really trust and respect to help us understand what those obstacles might be, what's getting in the way. Finally, Making Caring Common has a relationship mapping exercise that a lot of schools want to do. And what it is, it turns out to be a lot of things we do don't land well or don't seem to be effective with schools. This one teachers really like. It's just doing a map of everybody in the school, and every educator in the building puts a star next to a kid that they have a trusting, caring relationship with. And then you look at the map, and usually what you see is there are a bunch of kids with a lot of stars, and then there's some kids with no stars, or only 1 star. And you ask yourself, how can we make sure that every kid in the school building is anchored to at least 1 adult? And what is our strategy for doing that? And I'm arguing for being more intentional and systematic about our work developing relationships with kids and understanding the challenges that we face in developing those relationships and getting assistance in overcoming those challenges. So let me stop there. I would love to hear questions, or Mac, or Sharon, you should guide us what we're doing next.
Hey, thank you. You raised some really stimulating thoughts for us to be discussing, but we wanted to first give Mac an opportunity to say a little bit more about planting seeds. So give a little presentation, and then we will have a conversation afterwards about both what you've offered and how it may apply to our work. So Mac.
Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you so much, Rick, for your presentation and for the education. I think you being able to share your research and your work with us, we are all really lucky to have the opportunity to hear that from you. So thank you so much. Thank you, Sharon, for being here on your birthday. Happy birthday, Sharon.
And like also, I'm having a party.
And thank you to the Northbrook Friends Circle as well. Without you, this event would absolutely not be possible. So Johnny and Ellie Salk, Mark and Susan Good, Avis Bailing, Mary Landy, and also Carl Bailing and Val Phillips, thank you for helping put this event on as well. Thank you guys so much. Also, I want to thank Michelle Musali and Daniel Osorio, who put together the presentations and the videos for what we are seeing tonight. They're kind of the behind the scenes support right now for planting seeds. So thank you all so much for all your work. Last year, for those who were able to join us, we were actually able to physically be together, and we were joined by the Guatemalan Consulate of Chicago and the Guatemalan Civic Society, and also early childhood organization, Ounce of Prevention. And Sandy De Leon from Ounce of Prevention shared this message, which is similar to things we heard from Rick tonight, which is that a child is part of a family and a family is part of a community. And I just wanted to say to all of you that by all of you being here tonight, you form part of the Planting Seeds family and the community of our students, and our belief that every child deserves the right to a high quality education. So thank you for your attention, for your time, for being here, and for joining part of our Planting Seeds family. So Planting Seeds is an early childhood organization that seeks to eradicate the barriers of poverty to some of the most vulnerable communities in the world. And we do so with our accredited teaching methodology that teaches kids to love to learn, where kids are happy being in school. And similar to what Rick said, that they build a lot of those social emotional skills, but also those positive relationships with others and also with themselves. We also do this by working hand in hand with the parents of our students and not only support them educationally, but provide them the tools, supports, and resources they need so they can take on their role as the primary educators of their kids. And lastly, we employ and train local members of the communities we work in to be the teachers and community facilitators of our programs, to not only provide employment to people who need it, but also so community members can be the drivers of change within their communities. And so I say this with a lot of precaution, because I think when I talk about the poverty in Guatemala, I think that is where the focus stays on. And I do want the focus to be on how resilient and strong and incredible the families we work with are. But the fact of the matter is 22% of Guatemalans are failing first grade. That means more than 1 out of every 5 kids is not passing first grade, their first chance. Guatemalan public schools are extremely overcrowded, and in many of the rural areas where we work, there aren't preschools in the area, meaning that kids are not entering the educational system until first grade, which, as Rick said, with importance for early literacy, really damages their chance of having success later on in education. On top of that, Guatemala has a rote memorization learning system where kids are supposed to memorize and copy and aren't building a love of learning in their schools, which Planting Seeds prides itself so much on. Additionally, with that, as you can see, over 65% of the economy is informal, meaning that parents struggle month to month to ensure a stable income to support their families. And on top of all that, Guatemala has the second highest malnutrition rate in Latin America, in which we know how important proper nutrition is to early brain development, but also physical development down the road for our kids. And so, like I said earlier, my focus is not to showcase the poverty in which our kids work with, but my focus is to showcase that why working with their kids in their most critical years of development, supporting parents the best we can to support in their role as educators of their kids, and to employ and train community members to drive change, that is not only an effective, but an essential intervention to break the cycle of poverty for some of the most needed communities in all of Latin America. And I want to do so by taking you guys on a journey of what one preschool looks like, a one day in a Planting Seeds preschool looks like. And before I start this, I do want to say that I apologize to anyone who has, not apologize, I feel for anyone that has been affected by COVID and everything that has been happening right now in the world. Our families have been affected very much as well. But for this video, I want everyone to try as hard as they can to imagine the world before COVID, as hard as that is to do, as we enter one day in preschool for Planting Seeds. So every day at 7:55 in the morning, parents drop off their kids, kids enter and start their daily hygiene routines. They put their little toothpaste on their toothbrushes, they brush their teeth, and then the teacher will sing a morning song. The kids will line themselves up, walk to morning circle on their own. And this really brings out some of the things I love so much about our approach to education. There's never a need in any of our classrooms for a teacher to raise their voice at any of our students, because we focus on such a loving approach with discipline through love and strong routines for our students. When I walk into a Planting Seeds classroom, and I hope all of you one day have an opportunity to walk into a Planting Seeds classroom, the first thing I experience are kids laughing, kids interacting with their classmates, with their teacher, and also building cognitive skills, but also life skills that Rick mentioned earlier. And so the morning circle, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have math and logic. And on Wednesdays and Fridays, we focus on reading, writing, and language arts. But on Mondays, we focus on our values program, where kids learn a different value every 2 weeks. Our circles are activity-based, where kids are singing, interacting with another, and manipulating recyclable materials that they can have access to in their home as well. But then is where my favorite part of the day starts. As you can see, the teacher brings out the activity board and hands out clothespins to the students. And the students go up 2 by 2 and place their clothespin on which activity center they want to start at for that day. They then take their chairs, walk their chairs and stack them away and enter their learning center. The learning centers we have are the teacher center, where teachers focus on individualized attention based on their students' needs. The reading center, our pre-writing center, creativity, construction center, role play, and our painting centers. Our centers focus on building those non-cognitive skills and those academic skills that Rick was mentioning earlier. This here is Sebastian, and I want to talk about Sebastian because he loves the construction center. But only 4 people are allowed the construction center at a time. And so if at any day there are already 4 people in the construction center, Sebastian has to learn how to negotiate his emotions in that time, how to talk with his classmates and share that center, how to learn from other centers that are there and to adapt. And also, once he's in the center, how to share those materials in the center and get along with his classmates. These skills, as Rick mentioned, are some of the skills that we value as some of the most important things that kids are going to learn that are going to carry with them through their lifetime. After learning centers, kids then get a healthy snack. Every day we focus on getting kids a healthy snack, and then they start their recess time. After recess, kids enter a multitude of activities. Some of those activities are music and movement classes, science and social studies circles, and also reading and writing development to focus on what Rick mentioned again about the importance of early literacy. After the school day ends, parents pick up their kids and they have the option to join our Play with Our Kid program. Our Play with Our Kid program has multiple facets, but 2 of the main facets are 1, 5 trainings a year where we support parents and help them build the skills to care for and be proper educators of their kids, but also an open classroom where parents can access and practice those skills that they can work on at home with their kids. And I've mentioned this in previous events that we have done, but the reason this is so necessary is in our San Lucas preschool, we asked parents, how many of you were played with by your parents when you were growing up? 1 out of the 40 parents in our preschool raised their hand. And I know it's more than that, and some of the parents were being shy, but the fact is that a lot of our parents did not have the luxury of having parents who had the time or availability or resources or know-how to be consistent educators or playing with them in their life. And so we work so hard and focus on building those skills, working with parents on how they can educate their kid. In those last couple slides you saw our book lending program, where every week we lend books out, a library of books out to the parents of our students to build those early reading skills. And now a lot of the parents in the schools we work with have a difficulty reading, but that's what the trainings are all about. They're all about working with parents and showcasing them different interventions or tools that they can use to tell stories with their kid, to talk about the pictures, to try to expand their vocabulary, even if they struggle with reading themselves. And so my job is to brag about our methodology because I did not create it. Our Canadian founders and our current academic director, Marily Quiñones, are the founders of the methodology. And I really do love what we do. And it has produced not only these non-cognitive results that we were talking about, but also 97% of the kids who have graduated our preschool programs in San Lucas have passed first grade. We have also done comparative studies to showcase how first grade ready our kids are compared to other public and private schools, and we're significantly outperforming those schools. So our hope is to expand this methodology beyond the 5 schools that we currently work with, to many more communities where kids do not have access to the necessary early childhood education that they currently have. But because of everything going on this year, we have shifted our focus this year to meet the needs of the families due to COVID. like I said in the beginning, I know so many people around the world have been affected, and our hearts reach out to you. Planting Seeds staff and Planting Seeds participants have also been really affected. Planting Seeds staff have lost family members. Community members have also lost family members. We have lost former participants and many loved ones due to the virus. In addition to the loss that people have had, 85% of the families in which we work with have had a significant reduction in their income due to the pandemic and the government shutdown. On top of all of this, earlier I said that 22% of Guatemalans fail first grade. Many kids in rural areas don't have access to the proper technology needed to help them connect and stay connected to their schools. And so kids have been disconnected to their continuing education. And we are scared that that number is going to continue to increase throughout the country because of the pandemic. And so this year we focused all of our resources and time on ensuring that families had everything they needed to get through this time. And so that started with food bags. We have ensured since March that every single one of the families of our students have had a food bag that lasts them anywhere from 15 to 20 days, depending on the size of their families. In addition to this, we have collaborated with other organizations to distribute between 500 and 700 food bags a month to additional families in the urban Zone 3 community where we work, where these food bags go out to families that aren't even participants in our programs, but are families in high need. In addition to that, all of the teachers have formed WhatsApp groups with the families of their students, where we've paid for the phone data for all of our teachers, but also for all of the families of our students. So our teachers and parents of our students can be in constant communication. The teachers send activities home, activities where kids can manipulate it in their homes with toys and resources that they have in their homes. The teacher trains the parent, and the parent implements to the best of their capacity the activities in the home. They take a picture or video of it with the phone data we have sent and send that back to the teacher. And then that teacher provides constant coaching and feedback to that parent so we can do the best job to ensure that our kids are moving forward, not only educationally, but also forward as human beings as well. On top of all of this, this has been a difficult time emotionally for our staff and for our community participants as well, and our students. We have had our Father's Nurturing Program, our Mother's Nurturing Program, Motivated Women Go Girls Program, and our parent support groups all continue through online programming during this time, ensuring that we are constantly in communication with them and doing everything we can to help them pass through this moment. And I want to shift and talk a little bit also about a different project that we had been dreaming of and starting up before the pandemic hit. And this was a community center. In Zone 3 of Guatemala, we've been working for over 15 years. And this is an urban area where community members have constantly told us that they don't have access to safe places to go with their family after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we have worked with local architects and with community members to find a space and co-design a space to provide this community center that will be open from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night every night for the members of the community. And the members of the community, once this is up, are going to be the ones who are leading the programs and driving change in this center. And so this is what the lot looks like right now. At the very end of the lot, you can see where the building will be. And with the design, which was done by community members and architects together, this is what the center will look like very soon. We're happy to announce that we're over 90% committed towards our goal, a fundraise towards our goal to get this center built. And so we will most likely begin construction in between March and May of 2021. And so this center will now be available to community members in early 2022. And so I know I shared a lot with everyone, and I want to make sure I get back to Rick so we have a lot of time to do that question and answer. But I guess my ask for everyone is that you join us. And join us can mean a bunch of different things. But we are going to be in Guatemala this year, the year after that, and these kids deserve high quality education, not only this year, but the year after that and the year after that. And the future generations of these kids also are going to need that access to high quality preschools. And so our goal is to expand our work to more communities that need this programming. But in order to do that, we need you to join on with us. And if that is through a donation, that is amazing. If that is through telling your friends and coworkers and colleagues about the work we are doing, that is amazing as well. We have local friend circles in Northbrook, in Chicago, in Ottawa, in Pembroke, in Guatemala as well. Some hopefully starting up in Michigan and possibly New York, in Washington, DC, and Baltimore as well. And so there are multiple ways to get involved, but hopefully one day we can have you in Guatemala. But until that time, get involved, join in some capacity. Your support means so much. And so thank you so much for being here. In a slide or two, I will showcase the ways that someone can donate and also how someone can join the silent auction and bid on the items there. But really quickly, I wanted to also thank the event sponsors who that last year and this year as well have made a donation before the event to ensure that these events are possible. So thank you so much to all of our sponsors for your continued generosity. And so here is some of the donation information. I will put it up at the end of the question and answer session again. But thank you so much. And I'll turn it back to you, Sharon, for some questions with Rick and myself.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And we also wanted to ask if you have questions for Rick or for Mac, if you would put them in the chat. That's probably the best way for us to manage the ideas that people have they want to talk about. So if you do that now, that would be great. And then in the meantime, I have a question. Excuse me. Having heard from Rick and also now seen a little summary of the many programs that Planting Seeds is doing, I think I have a question for you, Rick, about after seeing that, do you have any thoughts about the impact that this kind of programming may be having on the social emotional development of the children that we're working with? Any reflections on that that you might offer?
You know, no, it's a great question. I was very moved by what I saw, and I guess I'll reiterate one thing I said, which is about the importance of relationships and the importance of listening. And one certainly gets a sense in looking at this school that this is a school where kids are feeling relaxed and like they belong and like they have good relationships with adults. And I'll be frank, I mean, the doing a value of a week or every other week, I always have mixed feelings about that kind of thing. Sometimes it can be very effective. I think it depends how it's done. I think the relationships are about 100 times more important. And so that's what really stuck out for me. Where schools get into a lot of trouble is when they have values of the week or they have values on walls and kids don't feel strong, caring relationships with adults. And kids are, razor sharp, alert to hypocrisy, and they pick that up right away. So, there's a tone or atmosphere or feeling about the school that just seems so wonderful to me, and the quality of the relationships just seems so strong. I think that's really what stuck out for me.
Mm-hmm. Great. And just to follow up a little bit on that, you saw from the statistics that Mac gave about the population that we're serving and the sort of overwhelming kinds of barriers that they face, economic and social. So when we talk about, being able to engage families and help them offer opportunity for their kids to develop social, emotional, moral development, are there ways that we can overcome some of those impediments and really to engage them? I mean, and now even the pandemic is another one, but there's a lot of barriers.
Yeah, let me just say two things. I want to just say something. I want to answer your question, and I also want to respond to something that Max said. The other thing that I really noticed in the school is it's emphasized, and Max said this, is that kids actually seem to enjoy learning. And that may not seem like a big deal, but I'm in a lot of schools where it just looks, Sharon, you've been in school, lots of schools where the lights are out. You don't see kids that are really vibrantly engaged in learning. And even when we're talking about something like reading development, even if they don't have the resources, and even if they're going to go into classrooms where there's a lot of rote memorization going on one day, as Mac warned that a lot of them will, I assume that's where they might go to middle school or high school. If kids love learning to some degree, they can bootstrap their own development. I mean, they will continue to read, they will continue to learn. And so nurturing in kids a love of learning is, it certainly doesn't guarantee academic success, but it improves the odds of leading a more meaningful life too. So I was really struck by that. Sharon, you and I have, worked in Boston for in high poverty areas. I don't know. I assume this is a high poverty area where people are economically struggling. I'm not. This is not news to you all. What people need who are economically struggling in the big picture, in this country and in other countries, is economic justice. I mean, people that should not be living with terrible housing insecurity and food insecurity. And there are way too many people in this country that are living with those things, and in other countries. But I do think that, in the end, and I don't mean to, this may sound cliche, but, when you think about what the most protective factor is for kids and the strongest source of meaning for kids, it's caring relationships, it's love. And, the extent to which a school like this is helping kids develop loving and caring relationships in the face of terrible challenges and hardships, there's really nothing that's more I mean, a lot of the mountain of research on this, there's really nothing that's more protective or supportive of resilience than that. So I don't want to minimize the hardships in any way, but I think that's the core of adapting to them. It's also, giving kids a range of coping strategies for dealing with stress, for dealing with hardships in different ways, forms of self-care, ways to take care of yourself, ways to self-regulate when you're in very dysregulating environments. I mean, there are a number of things that help.
So here's a question in the chat room that kind of follows what you were saying. If a child is born into a family that doesn't value relationships and the importance of education for whatever reason, are they doomed?
Well, this is a wonderful question, Wayne. I mean, I really appreciate the question. I can't bear the thought of any child being doomed. And I know kids that are born into unloving families, and there's some research on this. This is part of what the resilience research says, that kids are often very good recruiters of people. They look for people outside their family to connect to in some way. And so I think the answer to this question is that kids are recruiters, and if they live in communities where people are looking out for them, there is a really good chance that they can develop relationships outside their communities that anchor them and cultivate and nurture them in really important ways. And we really have to work to create communities where kids have those opportunities, because there are some kids who are going to grow up in families. And I don't think families, in my experience, very rare for a family not to value relationships. What's much more common is families who can't, they're just are dealing with a lot of hardships or histories that make it hard to care or be in caring relationships.
Yeah,
So I think we have to do our best to provide kids with those opportunities. And there's also adults who,
Right.
Through therapy and through other kinds of support, learn how to develop caring relationships later in life. And that certainly also happens.
we've definitely seen that in some of the nurturing programs that we've done with parents too, that when they're in a place where they are feeling and experiencing positive nurturing relationships with each other, it gives them that experience that allows them to believe that it's possible.
Yeah, and that, I think
Jump in
that's what good programs do. I think it's what good therapy does sometimes. It's enables people to have a very different kind of emotional experience, to really learn what a caring, have the experience of being in a relationship with somebody who really knows and values them, which is enormously powerful. Yeah.
Mac, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're hearing from Sharon yourself, who formed the Family Nurturing Center, who knows this so well, and Rick, who shared so much research on this. I just wanted to add on a little bit about kind of our work. I know I felt like I rushed a lot of what Planting Seeds does into a little bit of time, but one of the things that is core to our work are the family nurturing programs that we do. And we have parents who enter our Father's Nurturing and Mother's Nurturing programs who express a lot of hardships they've had and the difficulty that they have sharing love with their kids because of how they were raised. And so the first thing that we need to do, kind of answering Wayne and a lot of those things, is we need to work with parents as hard as we can to go back to those times and reflect on those relationships and try to heal to the best of they can some of those wounds that they've had from the past. So then they can put it up on the wall and see what their parents did, what they liked and what they didn't like, and somewhat choose the parents that they want to be. And so it's a really difficult process, but by working not just with kids, but by loving our parents and walking hand in hand with our parents, we try to support them in the best ways that they can so they can be more nurturing and loving to their students, even if they didn't have that same childhood growing up themselves. And that eventually does break a cycle of violence, a cycle of lack of love for that family, because one of our families, one of our participants, Luis, for example, he shares that he's been unable until a couple recent years to say to his kids that he loves them. But now he's told his kids that he loves him, and his kids will grow up having heard that. And so when his kids grow up, it will be even easier for them to express that love to their kids. And so when we talk about breaking cycles of poverty, we need to break the cycles of lack of love or affection in the homes as well, like Rick and Sharon were saying. And so that is what we're trying to do, not just with the kids, but with the families that we're working with as well.
So do we have time for one more question?
I think we have time for a couple more questions, yeah.
So Joanna, sorry. What are some ways to mitigate the consequences of learning loss due to the pandemic?
I'll let Rick start.
Mac, you don't want to take that on?
Some of the things that we've done, and then you could take anything expertise more from that. One of the things that I'm most proud about our team is that a lot of the work that we've done to adapt to COVID has been things that we were working on before COVID happened. And so all of the materials in our preschools are recyclable materials that kids can find in their home. We work with egg cartons, beans, pieces of cardboard, multiple different things. So Planting Seeds' methodology has always been adaptable inside of the homes. And we have an advantage that we're working with early childhood to make that possible. So, and then also we've been working for several years on supporting and training parents to be those educational systems. I share 100% what Rick said. Resources. Family needs resources. Family needs the same access to technology that more privileged kids have. We need to share equal amount of resources in order for there to be the amount of extended support and educational achievements that other kids are receiving during this time. But along with that, I think some things that we have been doing has been kind of been the pre-work to ensure that families have the supports that they need to take on that role of being primary educators, and that parents can kind of adapt their in-home environment to being school-like.
Any other thoughts? So I'm aware of the time. It's 8:59. Do we need to do closure now, or how stringent are we about our time frame here?
I think we can have one or two more questions, and then we can turn
Okay.
it over to Jonathan for the closing.
So I just see one more, and that is probably for you, Mac. What challenges have you encountered in the process of implementing the planting seeds methodology in Guatemala? This is from Michelle.
I think a couple. I think I want to share about our San Lucas preschool. I think that one of the major challenges, and something I had to learn as an outsider, is there's trust issues. I mean, you are going into communities where people don't necessarily know you, and you have to build that trust. And so we started our San Lucas preschool with 4 kids, and we were considered baby stealers. This was before I was involved in the organization, because families didn't necessarily trust us or the work we were going to do or how we were going to take care of their kids. But over time, and trying to build relationships with the families of our students, and then also producing quality education. Like Rick said, families want high quality education. They're very concerned about high quality education for their kids. And so when the word got out, they communicated with their neighbors, they communicated with their cousins, aunts and uncles, and they shared that this preschool is really high quality. You should get your kids there. And so bit by bit, our preschools started growing in the communities. But I say the trust building in the communities. And I'd also say another thing that has been difficult for us is that we are a very non-traditional approach to education. We're play-based. We learn with singing, songs, kids manipulating materials, which is different than a rote system that many of the teachers in the Planting Seeds systems grew up with. A lot of us grew up with a system like that as well. And so it requires a lot of training, a lot of professional development, and a lot of work with our team to kind of break some of those cycles and mindsets that we all have. And so it's constant, continuous work, because some of those traditional mindsets around education are ingrained in all of us. And we all have to do that work constantly to break some of that stuff down continuously.
Good. There's one more question here from Marl. I think I'm saying that right. Is it Marl?
Mary.
So the question is, do you want to make a gift to Planting Seeds? And there's also in the chat room, there's a lot of connections to the silent auction. So that's, I guess, the last question is if you want to make a gift or bid on an item. And thank you, Rick and Mac, for that stimulating conversation, and Rick for being here with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. It's really nice to see you again, Sharon. It's nice to be with you all. I do want to make a gift to Planting Seeds, so I just want one.
I will share all that information. Rick, I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for everyone for being on the call tonight and sharing your time. I do want to say that what I said about supporting is donations are critical and they are important. But even more important than donations are joining part of our effort to grow this work to more communities. And so that is a donation, that is talking to your contacts, that is joining a friend circle, that is eventually coming down to visit Guatemala. So hopefully we will see you next year at our event in person, if that is possible, if not virtually again. But so yeah, it is an invitation to be part of what we are doing, not just this year, but moving down the road as well. And so I'm sharing, turn it over to Jonathan, and I will share my screen so people can see the donation information.
Mac,
Be well, everybody. Take care.
thanks, Rick.
Thank
Mac and Sharon, you guys summed it up well and took everything I was going to say. I mean,
Sorry.
No. I had very high expectations of this evening, and you know, you guys just knocked it out of the park. And I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank the sponsors, Rick, Sharon, Mac, outstanding. We've got some great auction items, go in and bid. But like Mac says, you know, when I started doing this about 4 years ago, I really didn't know what I was getting into. And we can always use more help in the planning locally. So please contact me, contact Mac, get involved. That's really all I have. Just thank you, everybody. Take care, stay safe, and we hope to see you down the road soon.
Great to see all of you.
One quick thing, the silent auction is open until tomorrow at 8 p.m. And so everyone has until tomorrow, 8 p.m. to bid or outbid others for those silent auction items that are there. thank you all again so much, Johnny and everyone, for your support tonight.
Stay safe.
Night, everyone.
Happy birthday, Sharon.
Thank you, Jill.
I guess they don't hear.